Hello and welcome to Frostbite, where logistics and tech meet a fresh perspective. I'm your host for today and head of marketing, Ivan Castro, and I have the honor of speaking with our guest, Sam Herbert. Sam is the CEO of Peli Biothermal and has more than 20 years of experience in the healthcare cold supply chain industry. He's got a track record of scaling rapidly, growing businesses while developing world-class products and solutions for customers. Prior to joining Peli Biothermal, Sam served as the executive chairman of Seven Bridges, chief operating officer of Clinigen, and the president of World Courier. Let's give everyone a round of applause here for Sam joining us. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Thank you, Ivan. Good to be here.
Sam, we love to jump into our show with starting with a hot take. So, can you give our watchers today Sam's hot take about the cold chain industry that others might find controversial or contrarian?
Yeah, yeah. I did get teed up on this one, but you know, my view is I think within the thermal packaging segment, our piece of the industry needs to operate with more integrity. And what I mean by that, because I'm sure that's going to be your follow-up question, is some of the things I see in the market, right? Whether it's kind of a claim around a package of qualification time, it's 400 hours qualification time, whether it is claims around technology that exists. I think I saw some presentation where someone had AI capabilities in 2019, apparently, or financially, where there are business models that rely heavily on extra charges. To me, we operate in an industry where integrity is important because we're talking about thermal integrity of a product that is very, very important to that patient, right? And I don't see that behavior mirrored necessarily in the space. And so I think as an industry, we need to reflect what we deliver in how we act.
That's interesting, Sam. So I got a couple of questions there. Why do you think that is? And do you think that uh, beneficial cargo owners are seeing the impact of that lack of precision?
Yeah, I mean, why do I think people make claims that require further scrutiny? I think the reality of the space is once you're in with the client, there's a lot of inertia to getting out. So I think there's a fundamental bet that's made that we'll get in there, it will be a bit sticky, and we can maybe solve some of these things along the way. But I think it makes it challenging from an industry perspective because if you're someone purchasing the service, you need to weed through a whole lot of different information that may or may not be fully valid, that you then need to go and do work to try and untangle. So I think it creates a bit of suspicion of what is out there at times. But yeah, I think fundamentally it's to win business and then rely on the stickiness to keep the business, which is unfortunate.
Sam, if you were a customer looking to buy a service, what question would you ask so that they could be aware and dig in further into the space and make sure they're getting what they're paying for?
Yeah, I think I might kind of step back from that and say, like, what's the industry lacking, right? Like it's you don't have these kind of objective data sources that give you kind of apples to apples comparison of a thermal qualification profile as an example. And so I kind of liken it to, like, if you think about a car and buying a car, you can go and see kind of crash test ratings, and it's there. That doesn't exist, right? So I think there are the needs to ask the right questions around, great, like you have 400 hours qualification of what temp profile and where were the probes and what was the payload, because there's a lot of ways to kind of game it, but I think fundamentally the industry's missing that arbitrator, and so people have to do that work on the back end.
That makes a lot of sense, Sam. Let's switch gears now and learn a little bit about you in what a segment we like to call Sam's Cold Start. You've obviously had a great career in cold chain and logistics. Tell us about that journey. How'd you get involved in logistics? How'd you get involved in cold chain?
Yeah, I kind of accidentally, I would say. So I started my career off in management consultancy and quite quickly specialized within health and life sciences, which natural. I grew up in a medical and scientific family, and probably that helped kind of draw towards that. So I ended up spending 8 years in consultancy in the US and then coming over and helping found the health and life sciences practice in Europe. but one of my clients in the U.S. was now Syncora, and then I kind of went all different places. But they bought World Courier in 2012, and in 2013 it had some challenges post acquisition, and so very different cultures, right? The U.S. public company, family company that was you know, run private, global for many decades. So it was a trickier kind of integration in that way, just even from just a pure cultural perspective. So they called me up and asked, can you come in and help bring this all together, which seemed like a good challenge. I think if you're a management consultant after a period of time, if you think you're giving good advice, and I've been seconded in all sorts of operating roles through that period. At some point, you want to go and kind of eat your own cooking. So switched over, and that was a phenomenal experience for me. World Courier had a great legacy as a company. And I'll probably talk about it more later. And then what we kind of did over the next 7 years as a team was fun, right, and impactful. And so I was in charge of kind of strategy, then COO, and then president was there, and we launched all sorts of fun things like new packaging and Cocoon and cell and gene therapy service lines and direct to patient service lines, and so it was great. And then the only reason I really left was I had kids, and I had my first child, and I was a very frequent flyer, and it wasn't kind of aligned with what I wanted to be as a father, and so I switched into a different element, more locally. But Clinigen was a pharma service provider, and then also owned pharma products. So kind of coming around to a different side of the industry, and again, very interesting. It was a public company. We took it private, sold off the pharma assets, but I was actually then a client of all these kind of transport companies and packaging companies at that time. So I saw everything from a different angle, and people I competed with, I now work with, which was, I think really eye-opening through that experience. And then like alongside all that, I had a bunch of, I always had an interest in technology, had various kind of tech investments. And when I left Clinigen, I had gardening leave and had been on the board of Seven Bridges, and so then got more involved at that period. And Seven Bridges is a logistics AI company, which is focused mainly on pharma, not exclusively. So cooled my heels in gardening leave there. They actually were just bought by IFS a few weeks ago, which is a good outcome. And then joined Pelly. It was the third or fourth time Pelly had come around in different guises, and I've been a client at Clinigen, been a client at World Courier. Saw a company with a tremendous legacy, a great team, and had seen it over time, and kind of understood what it was, and thought I could add some value by being there. And it's been 10 months now, which has been a ton of fun.
Oh, it's awesome to hear that whole story of essentially seeing each piece of the supply chain on both sides as a customer and as a client. You must
Yeah.
have seen a lot of awesome experiences. Some of what we want to hear, what are some of the hot challenges you faced? What are some of the hurdles that you might have run into, whether it was implementing one of the new services or solutions that you described? Maybe it was a pandemic. Love to hear what Sam sees as his hottest challenge of his career.
I think I don't know if it's the hottest challenge, but I think there's an evolution through the space of kind of what people probably expect or think how things should work in the broad kind of supply chain space, and then where they are and how that's kind of adapted, right? And that there's kind of that through line through my career. But certainly when you sit back and you think about supply chain, there's a ton of data, and there always has been a lot of data kind of floating around. I think the challenge is there's a ton of small analyses you have to do to get answers to that data, right? And I think when I joined World, just as a reference point, I think we had 12 million price points as a company. This isn't true anymore. This is going back to 2013, right? So it's nothing current, but you think about that complexity, then you think about receiving pricing, and if you can't make sense of it internally, clients can't make sense of it externally, and also then for us at that time, air freight was a massive cost for us, kind of 9 figures of cost, and you kind of dig into it, and you're like, well, how are we buying this? And then when we get billed, it automatically gets taken from our accounts in 2 weeks. How do we know it's accurate, right? Like, and so you start kind of building data and tools to try and help you answer some of those questions. And that ultimately, like Seven Bridges, some of that logic kind of came out of that, of like, how do you get data together to drive insight. But that, like in the 2010s, a lot of that was, can you get interfaces built, or can you kind of say get things in set formats so that you can then structure the data? And then you've seen that kind of evolve through into LLMs, and where LLMs are super powerful is parsing that data and structuring it in a way that you just couldn't do before, so that you can get kind of data in different formats faster without all this other kind of requirements. And then as you kind of have that, it's like you can do amazing things with it, right? Like you can start to answer more questions. So we're still not even where I think anywhere where we will be as you bring that together, because you have the digital elements, and then you still have the physical. You got to have package. It has to be kind of conditioned correctly. You have to have the right transport provider. If it's a reusable, you have to get it back. So, marrying that together in a way that's harmonious, that actually kind of delivers what you'd expect it to, is the it's still the goal here.
Right, right, and I find it interesting as you describe the different technologies and evolutions of data that have happened over the last few decades. Seems like there's been a ton of work, a ton of improvement when you look at a logger versus a real-time device to now LLM. But we still hear that beneficial cargo owners are facing losses and failures and inefficiency. Why do you think that is? And do you think now we're at a point where this marrying of the process and the packaging along with the data is going to actually address the issues?
I think it will get there, right? But when things go wrong, there's so many different things that can go wrong. That, like I said, it's a lot of different analyses that you need to be doing very quickly to understand what's happened, right? And then on top of that, how do you put controls around to mitigate those risks? So you need packaging that's constructed, that's the right packaging, right? First of all, like, does it do the job? Is it made correctly? Is it then conditioned and ready to go? And then, having been on the transport side, there's a whole lot of variables that go into that, right? From training for who's picking up, to which flight you're selecting, to customs delays, et cetera. So there's a whole magnitude of things that can happen. So I think it's understanding that those risks, and then it's taking actions to mitigate them, and more as you get real-time information, anticipating those risks, so that you might select more robust packaging, given what that deviation profile is for that risk, or you might proactively intercept something. So you start to go from kind of designing the network to then kind of diagnosing the network, to proactively managing that network, and then even preemptively managing it.
I think you said it well, where there with all the micro decisions that you're making throughout the day, they all add up and they compound if you're making the wrong ones. And so I think you're spot on there that in today's world, we're challenged to probably make them faster and quicker and with better precision. So
Yeah,
that
and I think it's more than any one person can do, right? Like, supply chain's filled with fantastic people who want to do great work, right? But I don't think it's possible to take all that data and look at all those things without tools that are gonna help you through that.
That's right. We like to say that all this data and analyzing it isn't a human problem, it's a machine problem. And if you're relying on people to look at all the data, you're probably not going to have them catch up to how quick it's moving.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's right.
Sam, we're gonna
I think I was going to just say that, like, the one
yeah,
thing with that, right, is again, it has to be harmonious. This isn't solely a data digital problem, right? You still have physical things that have to happen. So it's how you bring those two together, right? Like, you still have a real drug that has real stability, that is going to experience real kind of thermal, you thermal input,
that's right.
and so those have to, that all has to work. So that's what has to come together. That marriage of the kind of physical and digital. It's not a digital only solution, which I
That's
think
right.
people can get wrapped up in.
100%. And I think that's a fun segue to what we like to call our lightning round, where we're actually going to share with you a bunch of technologies and get your thoughts on whether you're bullish or bearish on the progress and the potential that those technologies provide. So let me start off with the first one here with real-time IoT devices.
Yeah, I'm bullish. I think over time the cost and capabilities, right? Capabilities will increase, costs will keep going down, which is great from that. And then the data that provides, if that can be analyzed correctly and then interpreted, is going to be continue to be phenomenal, right? And as you get into things like real-time thermal modeling and moving away from standard kind of ISTA 7D profiles into how much useful life is left, I think that opens up a whole lot more kind of optimization and also less worry
Yeah.
that exists today.
All right. Now, how about passive data loggers? Are they here to stay, or are they to get ready to go out the door?
they'll be around for a while, right? They'll be around, and you always have to delineate between clinical and commercial, where you have stability data and where you don't. And so they certainly play a role and will continue to. I think as the cost goes down for IoT, if you have a connected device that is getting close, then you'll always go that route because it gives you not just the kind of real-time information, but you can also kind of release that product faster, and there's all sorts of other process benefits to that. But they'll be around for a while. Yeah, this is not a fast-moving industry in that way.
How about sustainability? Do you think this is a topic that customers really care about, or is it perhaps something more convenience based, or when there's a government hammer being thrown at them? What do you think?
Well, so our business is quote unquote sustainable, right? Like most of what we do is reusability. Our I think sustainability is good business practice, not because of necessarily the environmental piece, but that is important. But actually reusing something brings the cost down tremendously,
Yeah,
right? And that's what we invest in, is to make sure that the TCO, the total cost of ownership of our products, is lower than what a single use would be, right? And
yeah,
we see that, like a Credo Cube that we make, which is like the workhorse of the clinical trial space. The vacuum insulated panels last 5 years. The ticks, which hold the phase change material, last 10.
wow,
Your per use cost for that over the period of time is you're in like single dollars, right? For just that box. So that works, and it also has a whole other host of benefits, and we're driving that out into the commercial space. And again, like the total cost of ownership is not, it's not just a what's the cost of the box and the freight, right? It is what's your product loss, what's your inventory, what's your, how many fridges do you have full of
that's right.
these things, and so it's similar to rockets, right? Like
Yeah.
it's reusability should drive lower costs. That's our obligation. That's what we're investing in. So I think financially, it's a good decision.
Yeah, I love hearing an example that you gave there that's both on the environmental side and the cost side for the right reasons. Awesome. We got one more here, Sam. You touched upon it before, but Gen AI and temperature control logistics. Was it a fad? Is it here to stay? What has to happen in your mind for it to stick?
Yeah. So Gen AI right now, the best use case I see, right, is being able to parse unstructured data, like making it structured and doing that very quickly, and then analyzing information coming back, right? And that's a big step up from where we were, where again, people would send out templates and they fill it in this way, or build it, use an API to get data to kind of push back and forth. So much faster, plays a tremendous role. So it's definitely going to be that linchpin, and it's going to allow more data to be organized faster and interrogated faster, right? It's not going to give, I don't think it's necessarily going to give all the answers right away,
Right.
but it's not going anywhere. I think it will be built on, but it needs to be built on not just with AI, but also kind of novel ways of using that information and other algorithms that exist in places that are more siloed, right? Like when you're kind of incorporating thermal modeling, like I was saying earlier, into what is the temperature this package has been exposed to, and so then what is the thermal performance left in that package, right? And
Hmm.
that's much easier to do, but you need the engineering side too. So yeah, absolutely critical. It's a big step forward. It'll make things move faster. It won't be all the answers in and of itself, but very useful tool.
I also think it touches heavily upon the point you made before that we always have to remember that you're not putting all this data in the LLM for the sake of doing it, but there is a shipment that someone's waiting for or a patient on the other side, and we should focus on how do we turn this into a better way to get a repeatable and consistent positive result for our customers.
Well, yeah, that, and also it's a very good business tool if you direct it correctly, right? So like agents is a part of that, where you can utilize them to help take orders from email and get them into your ERP, right? You can have a human
Right.
review that, but that removes time, and ultimately that again is our responsibility. We want to be cost efficient so that what we offer is cost efficient, right? So we don't
That's
want to
right.
have the costs in our business, and we want our people on the highest value task, which for customer service is dealing with customers, not doing kind of any order entry or swivel chair.
Sam, so many of these technologies seem futuristic as compared to just a couple of years ago, and our listeners and fans always want to hear even what's further out into the future. I'd love to hear from you, looking out a couple of years. What do you think are the technology trends and innovations that are shaping cold chain logistics?
So I think it's going to be how you bring all these things together into solutions, right?
Mm,
And I think it will that requires partnerships that are real partnerships, because this the various kind of components of that solution are not going to be derived in a single place, and it
mm,
doesn't make sense for them to be derived in a single place. It's not capital efficient for that to be true.
mhm,
So as you start bringing solutions together, you will have you can very easily picture chains that that package was conditioned correctly. There's a lot of checks around that from
mhm,
from temperature. Those VIPs are right, so and you can kind of trace that all the way through, understanding what it's been exposed to. So you'll see that happen, and there's
mhm.
tools within that, right? Like I won't say all the things we're working on for obvious reasons, but there's very obvious things to make sure that from end to end, it's that box is appropriate. It's the right box. It's in the right shape. It's the right transport lane with the right provider, with the right understanding of what's happening, the right interceptions, and when it gets to where it's going, it can be released very quickly. And ultimately, if we do all that right, you know, that patient or that hospital site should be getting product exactly when they want it at a reasonable cost and in the right shape, right? And that's ultimately what we want to all get to. Like we should be hidden in the supply chain, right? We should be the magic behind that
Right.
it happens, because you don't want incidents, right? We're doing our job. We're hidden.
That's right. Getting me excited as you describe there some of what you foresee in the future, and I'm very pumped to see when those evolutions come forward from Pelly. That's super exciting, and I could see that vision of the simplicity of the process, and you can almost think looking back to today how much paperwork and process and email it takes to do that, and can see that world where it becomes a lot more automated, has the guardrails around it, and a lot more effective. Very cool. All right, we've got one more big question here for you. Our fans love to hear a story of what we call our logistics legend. This might be a time when a colleague went above and beyond to get the job done. It might have been a memorable story where Pelly came together to save something for a customer. Can you share us a logistics legend story for the fans
Yeah,
here?
yeah. I'll tell too. And it's probably not specific to an individual, but one of the things that was amazing about World Courier, right? It was founded in 1969, and it originally was shipping bills of lading to stop ships getting stuck at ports and fines. And how it actually ended up in pharma was as they kind of grew, that they were moving legal documents, et cetera, around. So they had these worldwide networks and offices that could move things quickly. And then it was in the 80s when you had a lot of HIV and AIDS trials going that, and also the rise of central laboratories that people said, hey, we need to get these infectious samples, around fast, right? And so they
Mhm.
were approached, and they kind of said, well, yeah, we have a global presence and we can move things quickly. We don't know much about infectious samples, but hey, we'll give it a go, right? And they actually had to petition airlines to allow them to move infectious samples,
Wow.
which is now normal on passenger aircraft, which a lot of things move on. And so and they did, right, and then it kind of it obviously moved from there. But I think those little decisions of here's a challenge, we know how to do two out of the three, but we're going to work through the third. And that was, yeah, like I said, that was petitioning airlines. Like that wasn't something that was normal. So I think, leaning into those opportunities rather than say like, hey, we don't do that. And
Yeah.
the second one's kind of, I was involved in a similar theme. 10 years ago at World Courier, we developed a pallet shipper called Cocoon, which, Vault behind me is probably, next generation or two ahead of now. But we're a logistics company. We weren't a packaging company. And we had a client who came and said, we want your service level and commercial, but we don't want to pay your clinical pricing. And the choice there was, okay, well, we could lower our margins, right? Or it's like, well, what makes up the cost within that?
Mm.
So how do we actually drive down the cost? And the answer to that was, if we can make a pallet chipper that's lighter and better performing, that's going to help us drive down our air freight, so we can then deliver something that meets their cost requirement. We weren't going to be cheaper by any means than a freight forwarder because we're a specialty courier, but we're going to be close enough, and the value that we're going to have around that with the quality of services there, and that launched a tremendous business line there. But there's probably five of us. Like this was not a big undertaking. We found a small engineering company that we partnered with and built it, and so again, it's taking kind of challenges, understanding how you want to address them, and then being a bit bold. That I'm certainly proud of that. And then things come full circle. We launched a competitor product to it, but it's that's how innovation goes, right, and how it happens.
Well, that's an awesome story, Sam. And I just think of how easy we're saying the process is going to look like in the future, but it took so much grit and hard work from the team and yourself, like what you're describing here, to pave those roads so that what is the today's process looks easy and looks like it came out of nowhere. But I could see all that effort it took for you guys to make it happen.
Yeah, and yeah, being a bit bold. And uh, the other question you should ask is, what did you try and do that didn't work? Because I think that there's always the graveyard there, and there's plenty of
That's
things
right.
I won't get into. But yeah, I think that's always the result, right? That you're trying new things and not always going to work out.
Absolutely, and I think there's another podcast there related to ideas that didn't work in cold chain logistics. Sam,
Yeah.
we're just about up with time. Are there any other last cool pieces of advice that you'd like to share with our audience? Something career related, industry related?
No, I think the industry is a fantastic one, right? And I think there's a lot of people in this space who deeply care about what we do. And yeah, again, coming back to transparency and integrity, and then the partnerships piece of how do we provide people with those solutions that make life easier, right? And are what they say, right? And again, I think integrity is super important in that, integrity in the product and the service, and how you act, um, and yeah, being bold and driving those partnerships to solutions.
Awesome, Sam. I appreciate that. And that's one cool wrap for Frostbites, everyone. Thanks again, Sam, for being here and for all the wisdom you've shared to me and our listeners. And to our listeners, thanks for continuing to tune in. Don't forget to subscribe, stay connected for more insights from leaders in cold chain logistics. Until next time.